Obiora's heart pounded in his chest as he stood frozen at the entrance of the club. The dim neon light cast a faint glow on the couple at the far corner. But there was no mistaking. The woman seated comfortably on the lap of the elderly rich man. She leaned in close, laughing softly, her hand caressing the man's chest. It was his wife. His throat went dry, and his legs felt like jelly. He wanted to scream, but the lump in his throat wouldn't let him. Instead, he turned to his friends, hoping they would tell him it was a dream. But they laughed, their mocking voices stabbing him deeper. Obiora, now wow, your wife don't upgrade. Rich man don't carry and go, one of them teased. He tightened his fist and forced a smile, pretending not to care. But inside, his world was crumbling. Obiora was a hard-working man, a middle-class Lagos mechanic who prided himself in providing for his wife Adora. They had been married for 2 years and lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Yaba, Lagos. To the world, they were the perfect couple, and to Obiora, Adora was his everything. That night, he had gone out with his friends to unwind after a stressful week. He wasn't one for clubs, but they had insisted. He never imagined he would walk in on his wife, dressed in a short red gown he had never seen before, sitting on another man's lap. He called Adora severally, but the calls went unanswered. Each time her phone rang on his screen, his frustration grew. She didn't even glance at her phone. Instead, she giggled at something the man whispered into her ears. Suddenly, they had held their hands and left. By the time he got home that night, his anger was bubbling over. He unlocked the door and marched into his bedroom. To his surprise, there she was, coiled up on the bed, sleeping peacefully like nothing had happened. "Stand up," he shouted, grabbing her arm. Adora jolted awake, staring at him in confusion. "Obiora, what is it? Why are you shouting?" He shook her, his face twisted in anger. "You bloody liar. So this is who you are? A prostitute pretending to be a good wife?" Her eyes widened. "What are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. I saw you tonight at the new club. You think you can fool me? Sitting on that man's lap?" "Obiora, I don't understand what you're saying. I have been home all evening. I haven't gone anywhere." "Liar. Do you think I'm blind?" Adora sat up, tears streaming down her face. "I swear, I haven't left this house. Why would I do such a thing?" But Obiora wasn't listening. He stormed out of the room, leaving her crying on the bed. The following day, he wouldn't look her in the eyes. He left for work without saying a word, his mind replaying the scene from the club. The situation became unbearable as days turned into weeks. Obiora grew distant, avoiding Adora at every turn. Adora, desperate to clear her name, begged him to believe her. "I can't live like this, Obiora," she said one evening. "If you don't believe me, let's go to the club together. Maybe somebody there saw me." Reluctantly, Obiora agreed. They visited the club, but no one seemed to recognize Adora. Just as they were about to leave, a bartender approached them. "Ah, madam, you are here again," the bartender said with a grin. Obiora froze, and Adora's face turned pale. "Wait, what do you mean again?" Obiora asked. The bartender scratched his head, looking puzzled. He whispered to Obiora, "This woman always come here with different men. If you want her, you better rush because everybody wants her." Adora's nail buckled. and Obiora caught her before she fell. "It's not possible," she whispered. "I've never been here before." Their argument drew the attention of other patrons. The bartender, sensing the tension, added nervously, "Oga, maybe it's a mistake, but I can't forget her face now. She's always here." As they drove home in silence, Obiora couldn't shake the feeling that Adora was actually a call girl. Even a bartender confirmed it. But Adora's tears didn't seem like those of someone caught in a lie. Obiora sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel so tightly. The bartender's word echoed in his mind. "She always comes here with different rich men." Beside him, Adora cried silently, her face buried in her hands. "Obiora, I swear on my life, I've never been to that club. Why would I do such a thing to you?" But Obiora didn't respond. He felt trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. Days turned into weeks and Obiora couldn't shake the image of Adora at the club. His friends didn't help matters either, teasing him always about his socialite wife. They dragged him out to another club one Friday night, insisting he needed a distraction. He reluctantly agreed. Maybe he needed to clear his head. But as they settled in their booth, laughter erupted from his friends again. "Obiora, look there. Your wife again," one of them exclaimed. Obiora turned. His heart sank. There she was, Adora, laughing and leaning on yet another man. This time it was a younger, muscular guy. His arms possessively around her waist. "No, it can't be," Obiora whispered, standing up. "Guy, I better relax," one of his friends said, pulling him back down. "Do you want to go and fight?" Obiora stared at his phone, his hands trembling as he dialed her number. It rang and rang, but she didn't answer. He watched as she whispered something to the man, smiling so sweetly. When Obiora got home that night, Adora was in bed again, coiled up as if she had been there all evening. He stood over her, his chest heavy with anger and confusion. "Stand up, Adora," he shouted, yanking the blanket off her. Adora sat up, startled. "Obiora, what is it again? Why are you shouting?" He pointed at her accusingly. "Don't play innocent with me. I saw you again tonight at another club, laughing with another man, like some cheap prostitute." Adora's jaw dropped, her eyes wide in shock. "What are you talking about, Obiora? I have been home all evening. I haven't gone anywhere." "Stop lying to me. You think I'm blind? I saw you with my own eyes." Adora began to cry. "I don't know what's happening, but it wasn't me." "Obiora, you're my husband. Why would I do this to you?" But Obiora was too angry to listen. He stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The strange occurrences continued. Every time Obiora went out with his friends, he saw Adora with different men. Sometimes she was with an older man, sometimes a younger one, but always dressed in ways he had never seen before. Tight dresses, high heels, and bold makeup. And yet, every night he came home to find her in bed, dressed in her usual nightgown, looking as innocent as ever. Obiora began to lose sleep, his mind racing with questions. Was his wife some kind of witch? Was she playing games with him? Or was he losing his sanity? One evening, determined to prove Adora's deceit, Obiora decided to take her out himself. They went to a quiet restaurant, far from their usual spot, just the two of them. For the first time in weeks, Obiora felt at peace. Adora was her usual self, laughing at his jokes and holding his hand. She seemed genuinely happy, and Obiora began to doubt himself. Was his wife living a double life? But his friends weren't so convinced. When Obiora told them about their date, they laughed. Oga, na lie. That your wife no fit sit down for one place. You for come club that night. She was there again, with one big man this time. Obiora's heart sank. He couldn't deny what he had seen with his own eyes. But how could Adora be in two places at once? Desperate for answers, Obiora confided in his closest friend Chike. Together, they came up with a plan. The next time they saw Adora at the club, they would follow her and see where she went. That Friday night, the opportunity presented itself. Obiora and his friends were at their usual spots when, sure enough, Adora walked in, yet with another man. Obiora's heart pounded as he watched her from the shadows. Chike said, "Oya, let's go." They followed the couple as they left the club and got into a black SUV. The car sped off, and Obiora and Chike trailed it, their curiosity outweighing their fear. The SUV stopped in front of a luxury hotel, and the woman stepped out, laughing as the man wrapped his arms around her waist. Obiora's blood boiled. That's her. I knew it. But just as he was about to confront her, Chike grabbed his arm. Wait. Look carefully. Obiora looked closely, his anger giving way to confusion. Something was different about this woman. She looked exactly like Adora, but there was a scar on her left cheek, something Adora didn't have. Obiora froze, his breath catching in his throat. This woman, who looked exactly like Adora, walked into the hotel holding hands with a man. Chike dragged at his sleeve. Guy, did you see that scar? Your wife doesn't have such, Abi? Obiora nodded slowly, his mind racing. She doesn't. But how can someone look exactly like her? They are like twins. Twins? Chike repeated. Wait. You sure your wife doesn't have a twin sister that they are hiding from you? No. Obiora said firmly. Adora is an only child. When Obiora returned home, Adora was already asleep as usual. He sat beside her, staring at her peaceful face. The resemblance was undeniable, but so were the differences. Adora didn't have a scar, and her mannerisms were more reserved. Wake up, Adora, Obiora said. She stared, opening her eyes. Obiora, it's late. What's wrong now? Do you have a twin sister? He asked directly. Adora blinked, sitting up. A twin? No, I don't. Why will you ask such? Because I followed a woman tonight who looked exactly like you. Same face, same body. But she has a scar on her cheek, Obiora said. And she was with another man. Adora looked genuinely confused. Obiora, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a twin, and I've never done anything to betray you. Her sincerity shook Obiora, but his doubt remained. Then explain how someone who looks exactly like you is out there tarnishing your name. The mystery deepened. A week later, Obiora and Adora went shopping at a bustling mall in town. As they walked through the aisles, Adora stopped abruptly, her eyes widening in shock. Obiora, she whispered, gripping his arm. What is it? He asked. Across the aisle, a woman stood frozen, staring back at Adora. She was identical to her in every way, except for the faint scar on her cheek. The two women approached each other cautiously, as if drawn by an invincible force. "Who are you?" Adora asked. "I should be asking you that," the other woman replied. Shoppers around them began to whisper, watching the surreal scene unfold. Obiora stepped forward. "This is my wife, Adora. Who are you?" The woman looked at him, then back at Adora. "My name is Amara." "I think..." But as Amara spoke, she spoke exactly like Adora. Same voice. She even stuttered just like Adora. Maybe we are related. Maybe we are twins. Soon the three of them sat at a nearby cafe, the air thick with tension and unanswered questions. Amara explained that she had been raised in a foster home after being abandoned as a baby. She had always wondered about her biological family, but had never been able to trace them. Adora, on the other hand, had grown up believing she was an only child. Her parents had never mentioned a sibling, let alone a twin. "It doesn't make sense," Adora said, tears streaming down her face. "Why would my parents keep this from me?" "Maybe they didn't know," Amara suggested. "Maybe we were separated at birth without their knowledge." Obiora watched the two women, his emotion a whirlwind of confusion, anger and relief. At least now, he had an explanation for the strange occurrences. Amara's voice trembled as she spoke. "I've always felt like a part of me was missing. And now, meeting you, it's like looking in a mirror. I'm sure we are twins." Adora was equally overwhelmed. "But my mother never mentioned having another child. She would have told me if I had a sister." Obiora sat quietly, watching the exchange, his mind reeling. Could this be the explanation for the chaos of the past few weeks? Determined to uncover the truth, Adora suggested they confront her mother. That evening, the three drove to Adora's childhood home. Her mother, Mrs. Omema, was startled when she opened the door to see two identical faces staring back at her. "Jesus Christ!" Mrs. Omema exclaimed. "Mama," Adora began, her voice firm but trembling, "this is Amara. Do you know her? She says she might be my twin sister. Is that true? Do I have a twin?" Mrs. Omema's face turned pale as she sank into a chair. Tears welled up in her eyes as she whispered, "I never thought this day would come." Adora and Amara exchanged a glance, their hearts pounding. Obiora stood by, his arms folded, waiting for the revelation. "Yes," Mrs. Omema admitted. "You are twins. But I only kept you, Adora. I couldn't afford to raise two children on my own after your father left us. I gave Amara up for adoption, hoping she would have a better life. I never spoke of it again because the guilt was too much to bear." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "You abandoned me. All these years, I thought I was unwanted. Do you know what I went through?" Mrs. Omema broke down, crying uncontrollably. "I'm sorry. I was young, poor and desperate. It was the hardest decision I ever made in my life." The confession brought mixed emotion, relief, anger and sorrow. Adora embraced her sister, tears streaming down their faces. "I had no idea, Amara. I'm so sorry." Obiora, still processing everything, finally spoke. "This explains everything, Amara. You are the woman I've been seeing at the clubs. I thought Adora was cheating on me." Amara looked down ashamed. I'm sorry for the confusion, Obiora. I work as an escort. It's not something I'm proud of, but it pays my bills. I didn't know I had a sister, let alone that she was married to you. Adora held Amara's hand. You don't have to live like that anymore. We are family now. We'll figure this out together. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotion and adjustment. Amara decided to leave her job and start afresh with the support of her newfound family. Mrs. Omema, though burdened by guilt, began building a relationship with her daughter Amara. Slowly, wounds began to heal, and the family found solace in their reunion. This story teaches the importance of communication and trust in marriage. It also shows us the dangers of keeping secrets, especially from our children. This situation has led to so many abominable relationships. Brothers getting married to sisters, cousins getting married to themselves, and so on. Let's try and be truthful to avoid a situation that will destroy our families forever. Merry Christmas.